Hello, everyone. We welcome you to a very special edition of the Believe in Ole Miss podcast. A bit of an opportunity for me to get to do something I don't normally get to do, and that's talk about something that I love a whole lot, and that's food. We'll get to Ole Miss, and we'll get to all of that in just a moment. But Kelly English, a restaurateur and someone that has got a great story and loves the Ole Miss Rebels, and a great follow online as well at Kelly_English on X. Kelly, thanks for jumping on just for a few minutes. It's really cool to talk to you.
Yeah, man. Hey, I'm really excited to be here. How you doing?
Man, doing really well. And as we talked in pre-production, it's been drinking from a fire hose. This has been a long time coming. Now that we're able to kind of breathe a little bit, kind of, the transfer portal is kind of coming to an end, we think, and then all of a sudden they keep popping left and right. But I know this football season has been a whole lot of fun. I want to talk just a moment because you and I talked off air about growing up in New Orleans. Now you've landed in Memphis. You've got a number of properties there in Memphis, the world of food. Kind of you're growing up in New Orleans and kind of how you became, I know it's easy to fall in love with food. We were there a couple of weeks ago, but how you kind of fell in love with food and kind of going that direction with your life.
Well, yeah. So I grew up in New Orleans, and I actually grew up a big LSU fan. My family moved from New Orleans to Baton Rouge my junior year of high school, and had that not happened, I don't think I would have ended up at Ole Miss. But it was in Oxford that realized that this is what I wanted to do for a living. My dad's a lawyer. He's a district attorney, and I was in a pre-law situation. Had a job, and so the places I worked in Oxford were, oh man, what was the name of that hamburger steak place out on College Hill Road? Oh man, what was the name of that place? Anyway, that was my first job.
Gosh, I'm looking at it right now. And just go ahead.
Same guy that owns Obie's,
Yeah.
David, was a partner up there. Anyway, but I worked at Buffalo Cafe. I worked at Pearl Street Pasta. And I loved the idea of making people happy for a living. But I really decided this when I moved to Barcelona for a semester for Ole Miss, and I got a job there, and I loved it. And I loved seeing what I was connected to back in New Orleans. But yeah, growing up in New Orleans, it's really easy to want to do this. Anyway, I came back from Spain, changed my major to hospitality management, moved to New York and went to culinary school, and then back to New Orleans, and worked down there for a good bit, and then found Restaurant Iris in Memphis. And it was a restaurant called La Tourelle for a long time before it was Restaurant Iris. Moved up here, and a major part of my decision making to move to Memphis was I wanted to be closer to Ole Miss. That was before we had things like On3, where you could find out anything you wanted to about Ole Miss from anywhere. I wanted to go where they might talk about Ole Miss in the newspaper every morning. That was 2009. So anyway, but I've never regretted once getting up here. I love this community. I love being close to the Oxford community, and being a part of the community of the University of Mississippi as much as I can.
So growing up in New Orleans, and I'm going to ask the question that you're asked 1,000 times, and it may be a different answer for every day, but my wife and I talked to you about coming up to Memphis a lot. But going to New Orleans, we have one specific spot we like, and I know you probably do as well. Maybe some that might be off the beaten path, but what are some of your favorite places in New Orleans, and maybe just kind of some special spots for you?
Oh man, it depends on what we're wearing. First off,
yeah.
The great thing about New Orleans, it's like New York. You either got to be really good or cheap, and in between does not exist.
Yeah.
But there's a place on the lakefront called R&O's, not R&O's, but R&O's. That when I think of my restaurant of my childhood, that's it. And it's got the best roast beef po' boy on the planet. I got a lot of friends that have restaurants there. I find myself going to places that evoke a memory of when I was a kid. Like you tend to eat nostalgically sometimes more than anything. And so sometimes it's hard for me to go with people to New Orleans that are tourists there, because we don't necessarily want to do the exact same things. You'll never catch me at Mother's having a po' boy. It's just not going to happen. There's too many great ones. But Galatoire's on Friday is great for locals and for tourists. There's a new place called Tana in Old Metairie that my buddy Mike Galata runs, and I love small business. Wherever I can go and I can find a small business, someone that I can identify with, duking it out, I'm all in.
I know you initially thought about going in the legal world, and things kind of changed whenever you got to Ole Miss. I'd love to know the decision when you decided I'm going all in the culinary world. When was that, and kind of what made your mind up, and then when did you kind of breathe and think, okay, I made the right call?
Well, I still wonder if I made the right call from time to time, but working on Saturdays will get old. But I do love what I get to do. When I came back from Spain, and I wanted to give it a couple of weeks going back to work once I got back to see if this is really what I wanted to do, or if it was just romantic because you're in Spain and whatever. And I loved the idea of making people happy for a living. I love that moment as a chef when you send some food out and you can kind of peek around the corner, not in a creepy way, but you watch someone's reaction when they don't think anybody's really watching, and that the face that you make with that first bite of food, you can't hide whether you're super excited about what you just had or a little bit disappointed. And I really chase that moment where it's just real, like an honest joy. I love it. I love everything about what I do.
I don't know if you watch a lot of television. I know with the number of properties you have, you probably don't have a lot of time for television. But there is a show that my wife and I really enjoy called The Bear.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you've seen it, but is a kitchen anywhere like that on a busy night?
So The Bear, I have watched The Bear.
Okay.
And I have really specific thoughts. If you want to pick it apart for their follies, you can. But what I think The Bear really nails, no, we don't walk around saying yes, chef to everyone. Like, that's not what we do. But The Bear nails the relationships that exist within a restaurant. And I love that that it makes me feel seen, and it also terrorizes me. The moments where someone didn't shut off the online ordering stuff, or this or that or that, all those things happen, and they give a real depiction on how much free time someone that runs a restaurant or runs a kitchen has, and it's not much. But I think The Bear is the best show that's come out about what I do yet, for sure.
If you could go back, or I guess I'm asking you to kind of go back, is there a seminal moment, or maybe a family member or a friend when you were younger, to where maybe they invited you into the kitchen, maybe you really enjoyed a dish that was prepared for you, where you thought, I could really do this for a living. I really enjoy this. I don't know if there's maybe something in your childhood that kind of pops, that maybe you kind of reflect upon, that kind of has grown you into the person you are today.
Man, my grandmother, she lived in Lake Charles. She could cook her ass off. And when she passed away, it's right back there, but when she passed away, my dad and his sisters made a cookbook of all of her recipes. And when I get writer's block, so to speak, when we're doing menu changes, I will often reflect back to that book. And there are times that I'll use exact recipes that were my grandmother's, and there are some times that I just feel the need to reconnect with that part of my life by flipping through that book. But it is biblical to me when it comes to the work that I do.
If someone comes off the street and there's no menu and it's just you and them, and you look at them and say, what can I do for you? And they say, I want your best dish, your most enjoyable dish, whether it be taste, whether it be preparation. What are you making for them?
It's going to involve grits and greens. I'm probably making them something slowly cooked, like some gumbo or some short ribs. I love braising. I love making sauces. I love cooking greens. I didn't like greens until I got older. My other grandmother, my mom's mom, used to bring me to Piccadilly when I was a kid all the time, and she would eat these greens that they make, and I just didn't understand it. It was flavorless. She had to put everything on it, salt, vinegar, all that. And then the first time I had someone make me a completed dish of turnip greens, I mean, my goodness, it's transcendental. It's just when you have a dish that comes from someone's heart, there's no substitute for it. Nothing.
And Kelly, it's funny you say that, which is a perfect transition to kind of our next subject. you talk about the heart, and I know that Ole Miss lives deep within all of us, and I know Ole Miss lives deep within you, not only from just a university standpoint, from a sports standpoint as well. You talk about Ole Miss fans; they love their food, they love the Grove, and they love their Rebels. And it was a wild year. And I know you had a chance to go to a lot of games. I know you come to Oxford a lot. Kind of your overall thoughts on kind of the encapsulation of Lane leaving here, Pete, Trinidad. It was a wild year.
Yeah, it was. I'll tell you, going back to the pandemic, when we lost sports for a little bit, I recognized that these people were putting their bodies on the line for our entertainment. Like, I think that sometimes we have to step back and recognize that. And losing sports for a little bit, and that void of enjoyment that I have, I will never forget. It was probably one of the worst superficial times of the pandemic for me, is when we just didn't have anything. But man, when we were getting into the playoffs and people were talking about, is this team going to be distracted? Like, I thought we were as mentally strong and had been as mentally tested and emotionally tested as you could possibly be. I would have argued going into the playoffs that we were in a better position on that than anyone else was, because who else has been tested like that? I felt like it was behind us at that point. Yeah, we've had some minimal defections going down to Baton Rouge, and everyone stings. It's less than we thought. And what's really funny to me about the portal is our fans do it, other fans do it. They talk about the people they left and they kind of diminish them, and then they talk about the people that are coming in and what they haven't done, depending on which side of what it is. And sometimes people just need a change of scenery. We had a lot of fun under Lane. It was fun to watch our brand grow together. And but yeah, if he wanted to go, like, bye, whatever. I think that Pete is exactly the right person for the job. I think that his personality, following Lane's personality, is going to be perfect. He really let the air out of that pressure valve that existed for that team. He did everything he could not to make this about himself. Even so much as, I don't know if you paid attention to this, when the team would run out of the tunnel, he took a left. He would not run with the team through the band. And I thought that as a leader of a team, it's a whole different thing, different salary cap. But as a leader of the team, I really appreciated, the way that he let his team shine, even in the moments that weren't in press conferences.
I know you paid close attention to this, and you made mention about running out of the tunnel, and he said it doesn't. And I'll clean up his language, but he said it doesn't matter who runs the team out of the tunnel. And, I thought it was interesting, as you know, but maybe a lot of people may not know, there was no introductory press conference. And we asked Pete about that, and he basically said, we're not talking about the future. We're talking about finishing something that's happening right now. There's nothing to talk about right now. And he says, and secondly, I'm so tired of the emphasis not being put on the players, and it's on this office. And so I know you've probably seen a lot of Heisman projections for next year. Not one word about Kewan Lacey.
Nope.
And I blame Lane for that a lot, because what he should have been doing was putting Trinidad and Kewan in the limelight last year, because Kewan Lacey was, in my opinion, the best running back in the country. I understand Jeremiah Love, and I get all that, but he was the best running back in the country. The numbers provided that, or proved that, with the number of touchdowns he led the country in. So nothing was said about that. And now Pete is kind of putting it back. So I expect, and the university's somewhat at fault for that too, for not promoting either of those. Suffice to say that it's completely different as in the head coaching chair than it was from that standpoint.
Right.
I do think what you said is true too. I think Lane should be applauded for what Ole Miss did last year. I think he was a huge component of that, but he was a component. He wasn't the whole thing. And we're seeing what, everybody talks about that Pete was given the keys to a Ferrari. Well, maybe he was, but he hasn't wrecked it. And he's done nothing but stay between the lines, and he's done a heck of a job. And last I checked, he's 2-1 in the college football playoff.
Yep.
It was an incredible year. To me, is there a game? I know obviously the Sugar Bowl, and we'll talk about that soon enough. I know that was special for you being a resident of New Orleans, um, or native of New Orleans. Is there a game in the regular season that jumps out at you?
I went to all the home games. I think that the loss to Georgia was important. I do think that was an important moment for us. I think we needed to have it to get as far as we did. That win against LSU at the moment felt huge. I also think that moment might have been when Lane decided that he was going to leave. I think that's might be part of the reason that nobody got promoted, was because A, his personality, and B, I think he wanted to take people with him wherever he was going to go. I think that the Oklahoma win, though, was the big one. On the road, rebound from the Georgia game. Lane couldn't beat a top 25 team on the road. Not making it about him, but that was our part of our story at that point. And but yeah, I think that Oklahoma game where we just beat them, like it wasn't. That was the beautiful thing about this season. Like we're so used as a fan base to both things going wrong. You can talk about 4th and 25. You can talk about Eli getting his foot stepped on. You can talk about Laquan against Auburn. We're used to either things going wrong or something crazy happening for us to win a big game, a big fumble, whatever. We just beat people this year. Like nothing was out of the ordinary. Nothing was unbelievable that happened except for individual plays coming together as a team. We had individual play from Trinidad and Kewan, yes, but there wasn't one single moment in a game where we couldn't believe what happened, and that's how we won. The one moment, though, that will flash in my core memories when I die, that will flash in front of me, is Trinidad to DeJohn Stribling. My goodness. I mean, for the ages.
Has to be one of the biggest plays in the history of Ole Miss football. Yeah. And here's another thing, Kelly, and you'll appreciate this probably more than anybody. But whenever I was, talking to people at the end of the Fiesta Bowl, and, there was heartbreak. I mean, there was literal people, sobbing after that game. And what was disappointing to me is that people, and I don't think people will, I think when we were able to sit back and reflect on the season, it won't be near as traumatic as it was. But I hope people don't realize or let it forget just how cool that win was down in New Orleans. That was that was a special, special night.
Yeah, and I know we're in a new day and age, and I want the whole thing. I think we all want the whole thing. But tell me a world in which we in the Manning Center have the Egg Bowl, the Magnolia Bowl, and the Sugar Bowl, and that's not a great season. That right. I mean, if you want to put out goals before the season starts, attainable goals that are reasonable, make the playoffs, win the Sugar Bowl, beat Mississippi State, beat LSU, cool. Let's go.
Yeah, that's a heck of a year.
Yeah.
Put me in your shoes whenever the team ran out in Oxford in Vaught-Hemingway Stadium, led by Pete Golding against Tulane. Any way to put into words what you felt that day?
Man, it was when the crowd started chanting Pete, 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 and then getting out of sorts with the Pete, which happens every time. It was really cool. And it was really cool to see that team rally around him, even though he didn't want it. I would argue with Pete with one thing. I agree with him that it doesn't matter who leads the team out of the tunnel, but it does matter who leads them into the tunnel, right?
Yeah.
And he is the right guy. Like I know that there's still a test of time, and we'll get into a regular season, all that stuff. I couldn't make an argument against him. Now, if we hadn't progressed as far as we did in the playoffs, I mean, we may be talking about different things right now. But he seems like the right personality. He is a ball coach. I mean, he's got the spotlight on him right now, and he still puts the pen in his visor. Yeah. I love it. There is no thought of any narcissism coming from that guy. And I think it's the perfect departure from where Lane was. I don't think we'll know, and it's probably not really our business, but the nosy part of me really wants to know what their relationship was like before Lane left.
I know you have a great relationship with Keith Carter and with the foundation and everybody at the university, but how important, in your opinion, was that relationship between Keith Carter, the fans, Lane Kiffin, Pete Golding, how that was all handled during the transition process? Because the university, Kelly, we could argue a lot of things about how all of it happened. One thing we really can't argue is that every decision that Dr. Boyce and Keith Carter made, they put the university at the forefront.
They made the right calls. We are lucky that Keith Carter was pulling up his socks for our basketball team and not another one. Because I do think that we have both the best AD in the country, and he's one of us. You know, it's not like, I think that as fans, sometimes we forget that we are more loyal to our school than, you know, a lot of the people that are employed by them or that, you know, that play for them. We are playing on our own emotions and memories. And, you know, this is not just a job to any of those guys you just mentioned. You know, this is the job that Keith wants. We don't have to worry about, you know, Keith going to Texas A&M and then Ohio State. We don't have to worry about Keith making, you know, bad decisions or whether he cares about which sport or not. I mean, he was an athlete here. And I think that coming into a restaurant, right? Like, you see our servers, you see the food coming out of the kitchen, but you don't see all of the inner workings of everything we do here. And there are so many things that have to line up for you to have a great meal when you come into any restaurant. Same thing with this. And, you know, the behind the scenes stuff that has unfortunately had to be part of, you know, out in front of the camera has been just run as impeccably as you could. You've got no complaints if you're an Ole Miss fan right now about the support, both from us and from the administration and from the people running the athletic side of it.
What makes Ole Miss special to you?
I wouldn't be where I am without Ole Miss. And I mean that in place. I mean that in profession. I mean that, I think, in the way that I want to operate my team. I think you learn how to treat people in Oxford, Mississippi. You know, Oxford is a place where you can put aside a lot of things in life that may be difficult with growing up. Oxford is a safe place to live, you know. When I went there for 5 years, I didn't have a key to my front door. We just left it open. That's probably not the smartest thing to do, but you can do things, or you could do them in the 90s in Oxford that way. And you know, I'm not the person I am without being there. I thank my lucky stars. You know, I was so upset with my parents when we moved to Baton Rouge my junior year of high school. It was tough. Moving is tough when you're in high school. But when it came time for me to go to college, I didn't want to go to high school for a third time. So instead of going to the team that I cheered for my whole youth, I went to their biggest rival. I remember the moment I became a full Ole Miss fan and let go of everything that pulled me to LSU, and that was my sophomore year. LSU had just beaten Florida, and we went down there. It was Patrick Head and Rufus French that year when we won 36-21 in Tiger Stadium. And everything that happened in the first half, I would cheer for. Like, we'd fumble it to them, I'd cheer. They'd throw a pick back to us, I'd cheer. And at halftime, at a urinal in Tiger Stadium, I had a conversation with myself, and I said, we're going to dance with who brung us for the rest of eternity. And we won that game, and I've never looked back. My parents are both big LSU fans, but I got no love for them. None, zero.
And you realize that was in 1997?
Yeah, 97.
97. Jerry DiNardo was a head coach for LSU, would eventually become fired. Tommy Tuberville was the head coach for Ole Miss. Tim Brando was on the call. And the reason I know all of this is because Ole Miss has only beaten LSU in Tiger Stadium one more time since then, and that was, I think, 07 or 08 with Jevon Sneed as quarterback.
Right.
So, and they will not have an opportunity to do that next year because LSU comes back to Oxford. Before we get you out of here, Kelly, thank you so much for jumping on. The rivalry between Ole Miss and LSU has always been on steroids. Now it is on steroids times 100.
It's going to be so toxic.
Yeah, it's going to be wild. And I guess a lot of people, if you live in that world of toxicity and wildness and exuberance, then your day is going to be the first. I think the good news, Kelly, is this thing is not the last or next to last game of the year. It's going to be early in the season, so you can go ahead and get it out of the way. But I'm telling you, every news outlet will be here. I'm sure game day will be here. It will be absolutely crazy. Do you think Ole Miss fans are mentally ready for what's about to happen in September of next year or this year?
If not, we got time. But no, I think it is going to be there have been toxic moments in that stadium that the egg bowls in the Freeze and Mullen era were the most toxic games that I in the stands, right? And I think you put LSU, who there's no love lost between us, whether they want to like fully admit that or not. And their fans are going to come trying to just poke us in the eye. And I think I could be wrong, but I think we'll see some things and the ways that crowd behaves in ways we haven't seen in that stadium. I think it's going to be loud. I think that one of the good things about us going through the playoff the way we did is we can kind of put some of that Lane Kiffin stuff behind us.
Yeah.
I don't think we have to focus on him. Certainly the media will continue to focus on that leading up to that game. But, I think that I can't wait to feel the energy of that crowd. It's probably going to feel like Alabama in 14?
That when Cinquez made the interception in the end zone?
Yeah. That was the most energy I've ever felt in that stadium. And I don't think that it's going to come close to that LSU game. I'm super excited it is the third game of the season because, I think Lane is going to have success at LSU. I do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he's going to find his footing by the third game of the season.
That's a good point.
I can't wait to punch him in the mouth on the field. Not literally, but
Yeah. That it's funny, my daughter actually, we were having a conversation about the game and she says, we always grew up saying that, you never want to stoop to anybody's level. You always want to take the high road. You always want to kind of, the Bible tells us to turn the other cheek. All of that is out the window when LSU comes calling. It's going to be absolutely bonkers inside that stadium. You remember the Ritter kick, I think, from 12, Kelly. You remember that.
I do.
And I was in the stands with my dad for that game. I think that's the last game that I've sat with him. Maybe the last game he's been to. And that was a crazy game. And I watched the replay, and I still get nervous because that kick didn't go in by much.
Nope.
And I've actually asked him about that. And he said, when I kicked it, he said, it felt really good. And it just kind of started leaning. He said, but it did get inside that bar. And it's just been so many. The clock game with Les Miles in Oxford. There's been so many crazy games in Oxford. Ole Miss has historically, over the last couple of years, played really well against LSU in Oxford. But I'll tell you, I'm with you. I don't know. Not only does Lane have his footing by then, but how much is that team going to be able to gel in a couple of weeks?
Correct.
They're going to have to find, there's going to be so many transfers on that team. They're going to be really good probably midway through the year, but how good are they going to be early?
Yeah, and we have lost a minimal amount of impact pieces, I would say.
Right.
And we've lost some, but that's going to happen every year in today's day and age. So I think that we've handled the portal as well as we can. Obviously those LSU fans are going to make a big deal about, the 3 or 4 guys that went down there. I expect those guys to be the captains of the game when they play us. That seems to be what Lane did when he was here. I think Patrick Kudos was a captain against Arkansas, but he tends to do that, it seems. Yeah, it's going to be wild. I hope that we take every opportunity to do comical stuff, like choosing who leads the hottie toddy on the Jumbotron to, all the things that could be. I hope they let Heinz Yellow Mustard sponsor the field for that game, even if they got to give it to them, there's just so many opportunities. And I think that, it's going to be a great weekend in Oxford. And, I think we win that game. I think that he goes for it deep inside his own territory on fourth when he shouldn't, and we shove it right back down his throat.
Is it time to kick it off yet?
I'm ready.
Is everybody
Like,
ready?
Kool-Aid
Wow.
man through the wall. I am ready.
It's gonna be interesting and fun and everything, to say the least. Kelly, thanks very much for jumping on with us. Tell us once again all of your properties in the Memphis area, and we'd love to be able to come and visit with you. But tell us about your properties and how we can come eat a meal with you.
So we've got 5 restaurants. Restaurant Iris, which is our fancy place. The second line, which is Po' Boys and Cocktails. We've got Fino's, which is an Italian deli. Rocket Greens and Things, which is salads only. And we have a place called the Swamp Bar in Midtown, if you're feeling fancy and want to have a nice cocktail. But you can find us online. And I would urge all of you, wherever you live, to support your small business restaurants. And every restaurant is special to someone. And thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, a great follow online as well, at Kelly_English on X, and always some great stuff, whether it be Culinary or Ole Miss Rebels. Kelly, thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Howdy, man.